You're listening to Lighthouse Conversations, brought to you by Lighthouse Haven, a spiritual home for your awakening soul. Lighthouse Conversations is a show where awakening souls gather to be inspired, connected, and enlightened. Spiritual spark plug and host Chelly Canales, that's me, will guide you through the twists and turns of your journey to a safe haven where you are finally free to live your best light. Each episode contains a conversation with a guest who has gone through a spiritual awakening, detailing their unique and life-changing experiences in an intimate and candid way. Although everyone's experience is as unique as they are, we all share one common thread. We're all seeking something. So, come join us on this journey and be prepared to leave with resources that will supercharge you into inspired action. Here's today's episode. Well, hello, awakening souls. Happy 2020. How's your year going so far? Personally, I feel pretty emotionally exhausted. I think that there's a lot happening in the world right now that makes it seem very bleak. But yet the day-to-day interactions I have with people are so beautiful, and I see these lights and these people who, despite challenges, are showing up in really beautiful and authentic ways. And I can only hope to be that for other people as well, because that's how we get through this, I think. Just showing up, being kind, being a shoulder for someone, because we all need something at some point, right? So I'm just thinking to myself, how can I best be there for others? And in doing that, I think that will help me to work through all of this noise that's going on around the world, and just hoping that things calm down, that peace prevails, that fires go out, that people get along. It's a deep, deep wish and hope for mine, and hoping to do my part every day. And that part includes taking action, being informed, doing my research, and really seeing how I can use my voice and my network, my presence, to just not just wish and hope for change, but to actually see how on the ground we can make this happen. Also, for this year, I'm considering what my word for 2020 is, and it's going to be union. And that's because this year I'm going to work really hard to determine how I can integrate separate parts of myself into more of a whole, so I can be more effective and active in this life in a great way. And that means a couple of things. I just kind of like to live up in the clouds a little bit. I'm a visionary. I kind of like all this spiritual, being out there type of thing, and struggle a little bit more when it comes to the day-to-day, down to earth, actually living in this world type stuff. And I don't know if you can relate to that or not, but for me, I need to make sure and know that the things that I'm creating very much need to be put into action in order for them to be effective. So I'm working on the union of those two parts of myself. Additionally, I'm working on the union of two big themes in my life that are so important, so special to me, but I haven't publicly interacted with yet. I've been doing this privately my whole life, but I want to talk about it more, and that's the intersection of the spiritual side of myself and the artistic side of myself, the actress, the singer, the dancer, the speaker. And there's a real connection there, and so much magic happens when the two work in tandem together, and they are acknowledged as equal parts, I guess, of each other. So I'm going to talk a lot more about that in the coming months, so keep an eye on my website, chellycanales.com. So I would like to introduce you to my friend Lisa Sessions. She is another one of the beautiful sisters I met at the Rise Sister Rise retreat from Rebecca Campbell at Omega Institute. And she is a wonderful light worker. She is in the military, she is an engineer, and she is holding that divine feminine space everywhere she goes. So she is a real inspiration to me, and I hope you really enjoy our conversation. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, thank you for having me here. It's such an honor.
Oh, it's an honor to have you. I am so thrilled that you were able to speak with me. I was truly inspired by the sisters that I met at the Omega Institute, Rebecca Campbell's Rise Sister Rise retreat. I've had a few people on the show who did that with me. It was such a transformative experience. I want to hear a little bit about how the trajectory of your life got you there. You have a military background. You're now helping people through angel readings and oracle readings. You help women through their transition periods. Such a beautiful mission that you have. How did you get there?
Well, the first thing I have to say is it's actually my sister that kind of got me here. So
Ah.
so I used to call her like my drug dealer, but it was like my like spiritual drug dealer.
Mm.
So she worked with this wonderful woman who was really into spirituality. So she would do angel cards as like sort of a inspiration for her employees. And
Mm-hmm.
so my sister started saying, "Oh, you should check out this book, or you should do this, or you should do this." And that's kind of how my journey started, was my older sister telling me you should read this book. And one of the first books that I read was Light is the New Black from
Mm.
Rebecca Campbell. And my sister and I, like, we really connected and we really resonated with Rebecca and her work. And that's how we ended up at the Omega. We actually missed the first year that she went there. And we literally said, no matter what happens, we're going to be there the next time. Hopefully, there is a next time. And so that's how we went. That's how we got there. We just went together as like a sister bonding. And the best part was we found more sisters.
Right. You're so right. And it's like a soul sister tribe that feels like it always existed. Do you know what I mean? And yet, it was not until that moment in time we were all meant to meet and see each other from that point moving forward, just activating these incredible ideas and thoughts and these paths in life that I think we knew we wanted to be on, but needed that little extra something. Maybe it was the support or just the belief in each and every one of us that was given that allowed us to go on this journey. So yeah, I'm so happy to have been a part of that.
Yes, and one of the things that I really loved about that event that we went to was we weren't in competition with each other. It was the first time that I've ever felt completely held in a safe space where it was okay to be me and it was okay for you to be you, and you shining your light wasn't taking away my light. And I thought that was amazing. And like the relationship that Rebecca and her friend Madeline had together was amazing. Like it was like that's what I want, a sisterhood with somebody, like just that best friend. And I just thought it was so amazing. It was such an inspiration to see that. And the other thing too that I thought was amazing, and following her work, following Kyle Gray's work, they all say that we're all on the same path. Like she's not any more spiritual than any of us are. Like we're all like, we shouldn't be holding her or holding any of our mentors on like this pedestal, because they're on the same path that we are. Maybe they're a few years, maybe they're a few steps ahead of us. And so that all of that was so wonderful to hear, and kind of just getting out of that like judgment. I know there was another book about judgment. I think Gabby Bernstein wrote a book about like judgment detox.
Yes.
And even when I was there was a few times where my ego was like, oh gosh, she's so much whatever, insert whatever it is. And then I thought, like, nope, take another breath, choose again. I'm okay. She's okay. We're all okay doing this together.
What is so beautiful about that is that you were able to step outside of yourself in the moment and recognize what was happening there, so you could check it and be like,
Mm.
okay, actually no, that's not where I need to be, which is already a huge step. And I love that. I think a part of the reason so many of us were drawn to her into that retreat was because we see ourselves in her, and we see, there are things that line up or feel like home because they feel like home in ourselves as well. And I think the fact that she's a few steps, well, or many steps ahead of most of us, of course, gives us that idea we should put her on a pedestal, but she's welcoming us into the fold. And by having that sisterhood that you talked about, it gives everybody in a weird way, the permission to activate those things that make them have their special gifts as well. And I totally agree with you. Like the ego, it was it was a beautiful thing to kind of put that to the side and be in this sort of safe womb space, if you will. Because I felt like when we left and she said, this is going to happen when you leave the retreat, it's going to be like a splash of cold water. You'd be like, oh my gosh, reality. And I think we got a glimpse of what it should be. And I think each of us take that with us and activate in our own little pods throughout the world, really, and are able to bring that to our communities around us. So she's just like activating lights all over.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so funny because that you say that is that it was like a splash of water, and it's like, how do I keep this feeling like that joy, that support of like that sisterhood. Like, how do I keep that? Um, and, and it still is a little bit of a struggle, I mean, that's all, like, it's a
Of
spiritual
course.
practice, right? It's a practice, like, every day, like, you choose to, like, do the thing, like, again. You figure it out. You just say, okay, yesterday I may have been a little bit more in my ego, or, today I'm going to, do the meditation. I'm going to, eat better, like whatever that practice is for you. Like, that's what I love is like, there's like that reset every day, or even just saying like, I'm going to be the light for somebody else to see and shine as well.
That's right. And so I want to hear about your personal journey. Tell me about your career path. Tell me about how um, all the little pieces lined up when you look back, how the dots actually lined up to bring you where you are today.
Sure, sure. So I'm in the military, and everybody asks me like, why did you join the military? I don't have anybody that was in the military in my family, except for maybe like a great uncle. And it was to pay for college, really. And the recruiter calls and says, how are you going to pay for college? And I really didn't have an answer. But when I joined the military, and I really realized that it was teaching me leadership skills where you can't get that from any other kind of organization. Oh, you probably could, but the things that I was learning, like that selfless service, the Army values, were just amazing to me. But then, kind of, what I was realizing though is that when I was in the military, I kind of hardened myself, where it was like I would walk through the door, I'd put my uniform on, and everything that was like feminine in me disappeared. And it was like I was like becoming a man, basically going into working in the military, where I would start swearing. I'd be very aggressive, um, and and that was and I was like this for many years, not realizing that there was another way forward. And so that was also kind of my journey, is trying to figure out like, how can I be me in my work without feeling like I'm really digging into that like divine masculine. Like, I wanted to blend the two, like my divine feminine and then my divine masculine. So that's really what I was really trying to figure out, and that's what my journey has been. Um,
What
and
branch of service are
so
you?
I'm still in the Army, and it's so interesting too. And a lot of what I've been doing is I'm an Army officer, and I'm an engineer. So there's not a lot of women in my field. I mean, one, there's like maybe 14% of women are in the Army anyway. So then when you think about engineers, there's really not a lot of women in this field
Yeah.
either. So from a really young age, like when I was in my early 20s, I was the only woman in the room and filled with a bunch of men making these decisions. And it took me a while to really realize, and it wasn't until somebody left the organization that I realized that I was a mentor for other women. But I just never realized it. You never think like, I'm going to mentor you. Um, and it wasn't until somebody had left that she really said like, I really followed your career. And it made me realize, and that's when I really started getting in that journey of, even if I am a mentor, I'm not feeling that I'm mentoring in the way that I want to be, because there's so many things that I am doing that I wouldn't want other people to do. Like, I want people to be themselves and be their authentic self, versus, like putting on, like a mask. And
Oh,
so that's
yes.
when I really started digging into that.
So it's like you have to be one person at work, one person at home, one person in the military, one person when you go to spiritual class. It's a big thing I've been trying to reconcile as I've been shifting my life to accepting more of my spirituality, is being me everywhere I go. Saying, okay, like I don't have to switch in order to make everybody else feel comfortable. I need to just be authentic to myself and be me. So I'm sure you learned a lot about that over the years.
Oh, it is so true. It is so true about just finally just being yourself, or not. I think for me, a lot of it was like censorship. I was, I would bite my tongue on certain things. And that's one of the things that I'm teaching, women right now, especially like in the corporate world, if it's very, like, if there's a lot of men, or if it's just like that patriarchal like system, is is really stepping in and owning your own power and honoring your voice and not
Yes.
biting your tongue, like not the other thing that women do, especially, I've seen it so many times in the military too, is we apologize for
Oh,
things. Like
yes.
it's like, oh, I'm sorry I'm late. And I had this, when I do my workshops with some women, I tell this story of of this lieutenant that I was, again, I'm, one of the only women in this room, and I'm holding this meeting, and we all knew she was going to be late. We all knew this, and it was okay because she was traveling, and so she comes into the meeting late, about maybe 15 minutes. It wasn't a big deal. And the first thing she does is she apologizes. I'm so sorry I'm late. So sorry I'm late. And it's like, again, like we all knew that. It's okay. And then she sits in the back of the room, doesn't
Hmm.
take a seat at the table. And when I finally get her to take a seat at the table, every time she's talking, it's a apology, like, or it's I like to call hedging your bets, where you try to say your opinion, but you're actually trying to pretend like it's not your opinion. So like it's I'm not an expert, but
Right,
this is what I
exactly.
think. Or I'm sorry, I just think we should do this, and then whatever the 1, 2, 3 is. And so finally, I couldn't stand it. After the meeting, I talked with her and I said, I just explained to her, don't apologize. Like, don't apologize for your lateness. Think of another way of saying it. So one of the things that I love, I'm always late. So one of the first things I learned, instead of saying I'm sorry for being late, I say thank you for waiting for me, or thank you for having patience with me and
Right.
my timeliness. So I just try to switch my vocabulary, where I'm still honoring my voice and I'm still honoring that I have um, an opinion, and I'm still honoring that I have a place at the table. And so that's one of the first things that I was talking to her about. And it's great to, just sort of planting little seeds and just seeing them kind of take root, and seeing, the women in my organization doing those little things to sort of tweak their behavior. And it's so ingrained in us, we can't help it.
Yes, what you're doing is such a gift because it's real. This cultural norm that we all follow is so terrifying to break out of sometimes. And the thing is, the culture is shifting. Things are changing where women are feeling safer to use their voice, to say their piece. And it's a struggle every time you make a choice, every time. And it's like, okay, what are the consequences of this? And by and large, a lot of times there's not. It's our own fear that gets in the way, saying, I've been conditioned this way, this is not safe. If I say this, then I am not safe. And so that holds us back. And that happened to me a lot. And there have also been times, especially when I moved back from New York City, because when I lived there, I had to get bolder. I had to be more direct. I had to, I'm very people pleasery by nature. So I had to like learn to get to the point. And I remember coming back to Colorado and people being very confused and offended by that. And I wasn't saying anything bad. I was just direct. And that made me curl back in again and say, okay, well, people don't accept this. I'm not going to be able to achieve what I want to anyway. So I might as well go back to this way. So it's been an interesting back and forth in the past several years since I've been back, trying to reclaim that, holding my stance, holding my power, and saying my piece, um, and not being worried that. I mean, if somebody does react negatively to it, well, I guess that says more about them than it does about me, because I know what I'm saying is not a hurtful thing, it's not a negative thing, but it might expose some things and make people have to look at things in a different way. It might challenge their point of view, and I find that I've run into a lot of resistance with that. So it's just slowly, it's like day by day, making these choices bit by bit, like you said, planting the seed. It's so valuable what you're doing. Thank you
Oh,
for
thank
giving that to people.
Oh, thank you. No, it's been an honor, and that's one of the things too, is um, moving through these transitions. Moving and helping women through these transitions, because I think the reason why I'm able um, to do some of this work is because I had so many influential women in my life that could, feel like, and I think the other thing too is, like, we talk about like finding our tribe, and I think even
Yeah.
you can find your tribe at work. You really can.
Yes,
You
you
just
can.
have to start using your voice, because literally the second I started talking about the universe or intuition, other people now at my work will start talking to me about that, and they'll say, "Oh, did you know the new moon is whatever, or
Yes.
and it's amazing, because it's amazing, and it's like it's funny because when we don't use our voice, we can't find our tribe. And then when we
That's right.
do, it takes that courage, right? It takes that courage to be able to move forward and, kind of take those steps. But then you find people. And it's really interesting, like when you can find people that you never thought, like, wow, I didn't think that you would be at all interested in any of the things that I'm going to be saying next. But you find they really are. And that's the beauty of the work that we do.
And speaking your truth and not hiding it. I love that part in Light Is New Black where Rebecca said, I used to hide my spiritual books off of my desk when people would come into my office because I didn't want to be judged. I know that feeling very well. And I remember leaving nonprofit world to kind of figure out what this business was, start Lighthouse Haven. And when I posted my first retreat, like, this is what I'm doing, I'm offering a spiritual retreat, I hyperventilated. I almost had a panic attack. I didn't want to post it. I was so scared that people would judge me. People would say, what kind of authority does she have to do something like that? Oh, doesn't she just like work in this type of field? Like, what is this all of a sudden? And when I did it, it was the most freeing thing. It was the amount of love and support that came. It made me realize when I was being true to myself, like, people resonate with that. And again, it doesn't just happen once and you're like, I'm good. I feel really comfortable with this. You're presented with the choice almost every day. At least I am. And so, do I want to stay hidden or do I want to show up? Stay hidden or show up? And by and large, the gifts that come along with showing up, is that's where the magic is. That's it's what's worth it to me. It's what life's all about.
Oh, that is so true. And it's funny too, because I think we all continue to struggle with that, where it's like, do I share this on my personal Facebook or Instagram, or do I share this on my business, page, and where there may not be a lot of pictures of me,
Yeah,
and I
right.
think even like now we still continue to struggle with that. And it's like, you know, how far do I really want to go with like, like how witchy or how woo woo,
Yes.
whatever you want to say, like
Exactly.
how magical do I really want to get with some of these things? So
For
it is it
sure.
is kind of it is kind of like you said, it's like that every day trying to figure that out. Um,
Yeah. Have you run into resistance in the military bringing these things up? Do you keep it separate? I mean, I'd love to know what your thoughts on spirituality in the military are.
so it's so interesting because the military, we do have they call chaplains, so we do have chaplains. So there is still a little bit of like religion in
Hmm.
the military, but it's not like the spirituality. So for me, that is absolutely a struggle, is um, trying to some of it too is it's the words that I use. So I will actually talk more about my intuition, or when I'm talking about my intuition, I may say gut feeling, because
Yes,
people in the military, they get the gut feeling. They get
absolutely.
that. Like, that's their jargon. So instead of like, if I say intuition, they're like, what is she talking about? But if I say like, you know what, something in my gut says we shouldn't go on this convoy in this direction, they'll be like, all right, we're going to turn around. Let's go somewhere else. So that's what I'm finding, is like, I'm still using the same words. I'm still being the same person. I'm using the jargon that they're used to. And I think that's wonderful. And the other thing too is like, for me, it's like, um, I I've really kind of, I don't want to say like walked away from like the religion, but I feel like spirituality is like, gives you so much more of a broader sense than like
Hmm.
saying like you're this religion or this religion. Because it's anything. I mean, it's anything. I mean, it literally is like, I feel, I could go and do a hike and I can still feel like connected with my spirituality, with my God, with my source. And it's interesting because in the military, that you can still say things like that, or it's like a prayer, or
Yes.
maybe it's a prayer versus meditation, or it's like, so that's it, again, it is definitely a struggle, but I've learned to try to use um, you know different jargon for what those folks are going to be more comfortable with.
Yeah, it's meeting people where they are, and that's
Oh,
how you can make
exactly.
the impact. When I wrote the book, so the ABCs of Awakening, I wanted to target it to people who were like, I don't know about intuition. I'm not sure about empath. I don't know about this and that. And I wanted to make it very digestible and kind of pop culture references, easy to figure out, like how to relate it to your own life, even if you've never picked up a spiritual book in your life. Because the truth is, it does belong to everybody. And even if you don't know that that is the thing that's happening to you, like you don't know you're having a spiritual awakening, but you certainly are right now. I want to make it, I want to make a community available for people to know that like you're not alone in this, and you don't have to talk like that in order to receive the benefits of tools and resources and inspiration to help guide you through that. Because I feel what the work our group, our generation is doing right now is by speaking out more about it, it becomes more in the common lexicon, right? Marianne Williamson running for president, the things she says, a lot of people are very taken aback. And I was really scared that would happen because like I've been reading her for years, and I knew that a grand majority of the population would be very confused or unsure because they've never heard anyone talk like that before. But if you really drill down, it's like, actually, no, those things make a lot of sense. Okay, great. And so now that she's saying it and it's on such a mass stage, more people at least have the seed planted and know more about it than they did before. So I imagine like our kids, you know, the next generation, it'll be like nothing to talk about it. It'll just
Right,
feel
dark psychic
natural.
voices,
Yeah,
it's like, oh,
exactly,
okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Right. Right. And the other thing too, I wanted us to kind of go back with like
Yeah.
about the military is that one of the things that we have in the military is we have these things called the Army values, and it's leadership, duty, respect, selfless service, personal courage. And I think some of the thing too that like Rebecca talks about as well in her books is like, or maybe it was in her retreat, is that it's like your life is your message.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
Yes.
what I try to do with the military is like try to embody those Army values with like treating people with respect instead of like yelling, right? Because
Oh
that's
my
like a big thing.
gosh.
When you think of the
Yes.
military, you think of like drill sergeants yelling, disrespect. So that's what I really try to do is show what I want to receive. Like I'm showing people
Yes.
respect.
Oh, I love
I'm
that.
showing people like honor and that like loyalty, and that's what I want back. Like I'm kind of like showing them what right looks like, or a
Beautiful.
version of it.
It's so different to tell somebody something and say, this is what I expect. This is what I would like to be treated as, and to demonstrate it through your actions, to be the example. And I think people are a lot more keen to pick up on that if they don't feel like, well, you should do this. I need you to be like this in order for me to feel respected. It's an easy trap to fall into. I certainly have done that in my life. Like, if you could just follow these few things, that would be great. I would feel a lot better. But it's like everybody's on their own journey. So how can I show up in the world? And I want to be my best self so that you feel comfortable being your best self as well. So yeah, I really like those qualities that you bring to the table. It's great. Oh, I want to know more about your work. So tell me about the coaching and the card reading, all of that world.
So that's basically like the creating soul space is something that I had been sort of toying around with for a while. Since I started reading Light is the New Black, there was I think there was like a little kind of very similar to your book at the very end. There's like, soul work, soul inquiries to do. And one of those things was like, I wanted to do more. I had like this passion, I had this like soul calling, but I just didn't know what it was for. What do I want? And that retreat that we went on like kind of just blew the doors open for what I wanted to do. And I worked with a coach to really kind of figure this out, like, what is my message, what do I want to do, and just wanting to know and teach more about intuition. And again, like this, what this is so awful to say, but the government shutdown is what actually spurred me into this creating soul space. So what happened? So I'm a federal employee,
Hmm.
and in the beginning of this current year, the government shut down for about what was like 35 days,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I literally was living my best life, and I couldn't. It was. It's. I know for some folks that may be listening that if their family wasn't affected by this, um, so I get that a lot of people struggled with that, but for me, i I was doing what I wanted to do. Like I was getting up, without an alarm clock. I was meditating, I was doing yoga, I was drawing cards for myself, because that's kind of the sort of like modality that I wanted to get into, was that I was still not completely trusting my own intuition. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted like something to kind of like something external to help me. What I know, the things like I knew like there was a part of me that knew something, but I just wasn't certain how to like get it out of me. Like, how do I get that out?
I
And so
know the feeling.
that's how I turned to Oracle card reading. And I actually, the first deck that I got was going to the Omega. My sister gave me the Goddess Guidance
Oh,
cards,
I have
and
those too. I love them.
we were just kind of messing around with them after, being at the Omega. And that's kind of how I started. So anyways, during this government shutdown, like I had so much time on my hands, and I'm not kidding. Like I did like read Outlander, and I,
Mm-hmm.
watched, like, who doesn't, right? Who wouldn't
I
read
love
and like want to know about Jamie
I know,
Fraser, right?
right? He's the
Um,
king among men. Yes, yes.
Right, right. So I mean, and I also watched like the first couple of seasons too. So I'm not trying to say that it was all like spirituality all the time, but it was really digging in and going inside, myself and my soul, and really having that talk, like, what do I want to do? And that's how creating Soul Space started. And so I just started, I started doing card reading. I was actually reading for free for folks, just to kind of um, get that practice.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
it's so funny because even now, like, I've been doing it, for, almost a year now, or 9 or 10 months now. And it still like amazes me when somebody is like, wow, that is so accurate. Like, to me,
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, that's right. Like, I am doing this. I am following like my path. Um, I can do this. And actually, interesting that you ask about card reading, because this is the card. I don't know if you could see that. This is
Yeah,
the
new
card that I
beginning.
pulled. New Beginning. So it's the Kyle Gray Angel Prayers.
Love, love.
And
Yeah.
before, during my meditation before this call, I just was trying to figure out, like, what is it, angels and guardians and guides, like, what do I want to be able to talk to, her listeners, and, how can I reach them? What can we talk about? And it was New Beginnings. It says, thank you, angels, for opening up the doors to change. I am ready.
Mm.
And when I was meditating about that, I just kind of like was getting like that we're all ready to kind of step off. Like, if you could see the card, like, this angel is ready to step off.
Off
Like,
the
they're in the
ledge.
dark. They're in the dark. They're kind of like, they're seeing this light and they want to get out, but it's like the fear of jumping, right? Because who the heck knows what's out there? Like, there's just big old sky. Is the universe going to catch me? Like, who's going to catch me? And I'm looking at that going, like, takes such courage to go on to a new beginning, to like take the leap, take that jump, but walk into the light, right? Um, that's really what I would want to encourage your listeners. I almost said viewers, listeners, whatever. Just really, really digging into what is that new change? What is it? Is it a creation? Is it a relationship? Is it a new job? Is it, like, children? Like, whatever this new beginning is, just have the courage to take that first step, because once you do that, like, it'll make the walking easier, even if it's a crawl. Like, crawl if you got to,
Yes,
right? Like,
yes.
moving forward. And I think you'll appreciate this because you're a dancer as well. But one of my, like, best, I love this little, like, saying, is a step forward and two steps back isn't, how does it go? Something like, it's a cha-cha. It isn't like
Yes, yes.
it's not like a back fall or whatever, like, you're just doing the cha-cha. So dance, crawl, do whatever you need to do to take that step to, like, whatever you want your life to
Mm.
be.
I just got the chills. And it's funny because that's like this, believe it or not, today, the second time I heard that, I don't know what I was reading or what, but it made my heart swell because I'm like, you make the leap, you do the thing, and then you're not like 100% there. Like, it takes time to build it, and you might have to step back to step forward. And that is so in alignment with what I was feeling today. And that card gave me chills as well, because I always talk about jumping off the cliff, right? And that looked like jumping through the doorway into the great unknown. You've got your wings, but you're not
Ah,
sure. And oh
completely.
my gosh, that resonates so deeply. It's like, I almost feel like you did this reading for me too.
Well, that's the
Like,
thing
I'll
too,
take it.
it's like, so for me, like, for me too, like, sometimes it's so hard. Like, so I'm a Virgo. Like, I want to
Hmm.
know how it ends. Like,
Yes, yes.
there are some times where I get so into a book and I know that it's going to be happily ever after. But every once in a while, like, I'll read the end to be like, okay, woof. All right. So I just want to know how, and that's the thing for us to, in this space, realizing that the how of the journey isn't up to us. Like just doing the journey, like just being on that path and like taking those
Yes.
leaps and having that big trust to know that it's going to be okay. Again, like kind of talking about religion too, like the Bible talks about the birds and the sparrows, like they have, they don't worry about how are they going to get fed, how are they going to survive. They just live their life and like sing their songs, and like
Mm.
the seeds will like come, right? Like they just trust that the universe, God, source, goddesses, whoever it is, like whatever resonates with you, like insert your word, but
Hmm.
it's they're going to be taken care of. And so I think that we need to be more like the birds of the sky and just, fly, do our thing, and just trust that whatever we need will come to us.
Whew, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like I had a session with you. It was a session. I do. I feel like I'm working with you right now, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, so that's what we do at Creating Soul
Wow.
Space, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen.
So how can people get a hold of you online?
So I'm on Facebook. So I'm on Facebook as Creating Soul Space. I'm on Insta as Creating Soul Space. So that's really, I'm like all over the social media, Creating Soul Space.
Phenomenal. And I'll put links in the show notes as well. I'm just so delighted to have had this time to get to know you better and for you to share your gift that you're changing the world. You're showing up, you're giving of your heart, and you're following the path that you feel guided to do. So I commend you for that. Thank you for also bringing this magic to areas that we don't necessarily think that spirituality lives in, the way you show up in the military, the way you show up in engineering, as well as having your full spiritual practice. You are doing the good work, so thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And actually, thank you to you for having these wonderful conversations with people. So like having this space is just awesome. Like I really, really feel like we need to have these like more conversations like this, because they're important. They're
They
so
are.
important. And I loved your book, and I love
Thank
that
you.
the way that you're able to make these like the process of awakening can be scary, can be, deeply personal, but I love in your book that you do it with grace and with humor, and like you said, with those, kind of like, those like it was awesome to be able to like have something light and like a light read, and then with things that you can do to sort of help you out on your journey. I just loved all of it.
Thank you. I'm so glad it was meaningful to you. And, I can't wait to see the great things you continue to put out into the world as well. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Lighthouse Conversations. If this show resonates with you, it would mean so much to have you rate, review, and share. Don't forget to follow us at chellycanales.com and on social media.